that's about it for now. So I am going to turn the meeting over to Cindy Veach and Carla Panciera, who will introduce our readers.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who's contributed to MER, either this issue or other issues or in any way. We really appreciate it. I also want to acknowledge Jen and how much we miss her. She and I edited 8 issues of MER together, including this one. And I think of her with every poem, recalling our conversations about each one. I'm thrilled that Carla could join the editorial team. She was also a friend of Jen, and I'm grateful for her editorial brilliance that she brings to MER. So welcome, Carla. So I'm going to introduce the first group of 6 readers. And the first is Adenike Phillips.
Would you like me to start reading now?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Last night's dinner is to memory as flesh is to bone. I smell the minerally marrow of the animal we ate for dinner last night. Slow cooked at 325, then 425 till it fell off the bone. I collect the swollen crumbs in the sink strainer. Stink of bread, tomatoes, kidney beans, onion skin, and fat. What a morning of ordinary things. This is the wasteland, the leftover ruin no one sees. Then I remember your body, hidden under the blanket, lump of swollen flesh. Soon the poison would dissolve you down to bone. But even in this, your fingers need dough. Recall the recipe for Southern melt-in-your-mouth rolls. Slide me the butter. As part of you stutters and part of you crumbles, part of you rises, shines. The morning you pronounce metastasis, it struck my tongue like fire, leaving burnt pieces of you in my mouth. I want to imagine you, wild and unspoken for, unlike any other beast, untethered from any table, no forks, no knives, or kingdoms, no time to tame you. Ask me if I could love you like this. Bare-breasted, luminous crescent, blooming from bone, saturated in starshine and ashe. Everything your slender black fingers touch becomes liberation, becomes libation, becomes omniscience, becomes obsession, becomes mojo, becomes drum thumb, becomes womb, becomes heirloom, becomes climax, becomes galaxy, becomes multiverse of Black mother healed metastasis. Shall I burst bellyful, feasting on my memory of you like this?
Thank you. What a way to kick off this reading. Thank you. The second reader is Amanda Brush.
Hi. This is a short excerpt from the piece that I had published in this journal. I'm really excited to be here. I saw it while driving on a Sunday afternoon. My white spotted dog bounded back and forth against the rear window, locked intently on the scene. It lay there, dragged by someone most likely onto the sidewalk adjacent the road. It was still whole. The 6 vultures surrounding it flapped their wings in anticipation of a good meal. What once had been a doe, alive, eyes bright, hooves clapping against the pavement, was now nothing more than a carcass. My grandmother loathed that word. It became a running joke in the family to slip it into conversation at least once when we all gathered, a practice that I participated in. As we carved the turkey on Thanksgiving, "Grandma, what part of that carcass do you want?" We all laughed as we watched her reaction, shock, then disgust, and ultimately revulsion at the word. She would be reeking of vodka by then, expression exaggerated in a way that can happen with the loss of inhibition. What strikes me now is how truly disturbed she was by the word. She could never understand why we continued to torture her with it year after year, and I can't say I know the reason why either. But when I see the deer carcass lying on the sidewalk that afternoon, light spilling over the soft coat and eyes like glass, I cannot help but think of her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. The next reader is Amy Asherah.
Hi, I'm reading from the current issue. My poem Daughter. Sorry, there's no dead animals in mine. Daughter. I wanted to be a cowgirl. I wanted to wear overalls in my school picture, wear a dirty John Deere hat like my uncles, the farmers, did, and not smile like my uncles didn't smile. Nobody told them they should. My mother's mother had rules about hats on girls. She confiscated them at the door. My mother braided my hair in 2 French braids. She cinched them with elastics glued to plastic flowers, pinched clips in my hair with dangling beads. She cut and stitched calico dresses with lace collars and smocked bodices, puffed sleeves with tight cuffs, satin sashes she tied into bows. Patent leather shoes were forbidden to climb trees. My mother enforced tights. My mother said my hair was a rat's nest. She refused to take my picture unless I smiled. My mother quit me from baseball and signed me up for ballet. My mother asked when I stopped sucking my thumb, "Are you a lesbian?" My mother yanked my hair. She drove bristles through the thickest thickets. My mother, through gritted teeth, said, "Stop moving." She said, "Stop crying." Her teeth were full of pins.
Thank you, Amy. Next up is Brandel France de Bravo. Brandel.
Thank you. I'm going to read my poem from MER, which is called Put to Bed. "Everyone gets lighter," wrote John Giorno, and let me add, stiffer. Ankles struggle to wake up as feet bushwhack through darkness to the bathroom. I remember helping my mother to her bedside commode, pulling back the heavy covers that pressed down, flattened her, and seeing her rigid toes, pale as marble, en pointe. Was she dreaming? Self-hospice of jetés over the beltway, pirouettes between glass towers on a sprung sky. My daughter, only 28, already complains of stiffness. Too young to gripe about needing to pee at night, she believes in Reset's promise, build back better, sleep optimization. She's bought blackout curtains, a mattress, so attuned her flip-flopping turns into tango, a silky sleep mask, and a machine that rivers over the busy street's stones. I'd love a new mattress, but I'm too tired to read all those reviews, have resigned myself to rolling into the deepening ditch between my husband and me like a hit job. In the photo album I made after my mother died, there are pages devoted to her, to us, in her bed. Her smoking a long brown Moore cigarette, me in a blue Speedo standing over her, showing off my hamster. Her sleeping off after work cocktails with colleagues. Me in black fishnet and bra, sweat-stiff hair, regaling her with disco tales. Her reading Goodnight Moon to my daughter. All of us eating chocolate mousse out of white ramekins. There's one of her pre-dentures, smiling, gap-toothed, auburn hair over eggshell shoulders, naked under a white sheet with chiaroscuro creases. The bed, not yet a place of eternal rest, is innocent, sexy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandel. Next reader is Brittany Jaekel. Brittany?
Thanks. I'm reading an excerpt from my piece in this issue called TFMR, Termination for Medical Reasons. My husband and I reach for each other. We've readied our bodies for touch, releasing limbs from clothes and sounds from speech. We make love. We make a baby. We make it seem easy. The second bar appears instantly. It darkens. Pink dogwood becomes candy pink, becomes sea pink, becomes pink carnation, becomes pink flambe. I am not pregnant. I am pregnant. My mind fills with baby. Terror and love slip over and under one another, forming a tight braid. I want baby, but I want to puke too. I toss out lunch in powerful gushing spasms. Then I toss out breakfast. Toilet water splashes my cheeks and eyelids as I heave into its depths. This is the real work, I think. This is the real work of making a baby. The haze of nausea is unmoved. It will not lift. It layers over me, hardening, sediment upon sediment. I feel like a fossil, all crushed, all bent wings. They haul me into the ER. They drop graham crackers and crackly cups of orange juice onto my tray. The doctor says, eat, drink, it's simple. Why can't you do something so simple? Well, now there's gray-brown mush and orange slime on the floor of our car, and we haven't even left the hospital parking lot. Baby at least thrives. Nothing works. I collect the failures in the shining mixing bowl next to my head. They install a more permanent port on the back of my left hand. They drip heavy bags of fluid through my IV several times a day. They ask my husband to slip suppositories into my anus. If I move, I vomit. If I open my eyes, I vomit. If I speak, I vomit. I stop thinking. I stop being. I stopped eating and drinking days ago. My weak little heartbeat singing, no point, no point, no point. They would like to place a feeding tube. They would like to try some experimental steroids. They would like to hospitalize me for the duration of the pregnancy. My 2-year-old is at Grandma's house, waiting patiently. I am a little over 8 weeks along. They show me baby, skirting across the ultrasound image like an adorable jelly bean. I ask for the ultrasound printouts. Then I ask for an abortion. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. And the next reader is Kadra Scott Flaherty. Kadra?
I think she maybe didn't make it.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
All right.
Okay, I guess I'm on.
Mhm.
I'm thrilled to be here. Hello, everyone. And it's an honor to work with MER, especially as we approach our 25th issue, which is quite an accomplishment. And congratulations, Marjorie, and everyone that's been involved in getting the magazine to its silver anniversary. It'll be a great celebration. We're going to start with Carlin Katz.
Hi, this poem is not from the issue, but it is about motherhood, and I hope it fits. At my son's recital, I imagine the piano is alive. Bodies curve and dovetail inside her. Resonant walnut hammers, fragile ivory. Spring steel wire shaped with the exertion of muscle and blood. She is ready for little fingers to warm her keys, to press into her shining liquid bulk, to coax sound from her exultant mouth. The children arrive, inhale, begin. With 9-year-old solemnity, my son shoves hair out of his eyes, offers a stiff smile, a courteous bow. His still plump fingers reach for the octave. A hesitation, then the piano rises to meet him and music blooms, newborn. I applaud, holding this moment like bathwater between my cupped palms. I feel the piano's thrill, impossible to separate from a child's earnest hands, from my astonishment. Look how she thrums with pride at the arpeggio, how she holds the last ringing high notes, willing the beat to stretch, willing the child to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlin. Next up, Chloe Yelena Miller.
Hi, thank you so much. This is a wonderful issue and congratulations. Can't see it, but congratulations to all. And I think of Jen often. So this poem is about atheism and it has a little phrase in Italian, andata su, which means to go up as in after death. Why can't I? Why can't I believe just for you? I'd paint stories wide for you, crying in the night as if you bit your tongue until you bled. What happens when you die, you ask? I sat next to Aunt Dora's hospice bed as she left, as she andata su, to the place described to her, or the silence I imagined. I wanted to learn something better for myself. Now you, like when she showed me how to turn meatballs with spoons. Would stories protect you like boarded up windows in a storm? I reach for your hand, but you are only within yourself, as we are, no matter who sits or witnesses or loves. I am sorry, my dear child, for these truths. We live with these losses of each other and ourselves. Tonight, let's sleep and wake up to sunshine and movement. We are here now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. That was beautiful. Next up is Connie Post.
I thank you so much, Marjorie and Cindy and Jennifer, for this wonderful, amazing work you do year after year. My poem I'm going to read is from the issue. And of course, now I have a frog in my throat. Okay. Excommunication. There were people there at the memorial service from our past. They knew us as the strong Catholic family with straight A report cards. They didn't know I left the church 30 years ago, that I didn't speak to my mother for the last 25 years of her life. They didn't know about a father with a dark cloak and the silent entrance to our room. After the service was over, someone told me her aunt used to give my mother communion in the days before her death. I think about my mother, old and frail, her hands folded and reverent, swallowing the Eucharist, along with the textured silence, the hinges of her jaw opening and closing, a drawbridge for the truth. The moat, the forsaken water, the murky sin, and the priests saying she was holy, she was brave, she went to confession. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie, for sharing that with us. The next reader is Erin Murphy.
Thank you so much. Great to see everyone here. My poem is called Tidal Basin. My mother and I rent a paddle boat for peak bloom of the cherry blossoms. We keep a steady pace, though we both have hurt knees, mine from dancing, hers from kneeling on the kitchen floor. Housekeeper's knee, her injury is called, though she was a teacher, not a maid, the first in her family to earn a degree. My grandma cleaned the factory boss's office after decades on the assembly line. She worked third shift and preferred the carpeted quiet and Xerox room where she'd copy Family Circus cartoons for my brother and me, scrawling our names under the kids whose mouths were tiny black tunnels. Today, in a tunnel into the city, my mother takes a call from her doctor. The signal is weak, so he repeats that she needs to increase her dosage. At the tidal basin, a girl in a nearby boat asks her parents, "Remember when this was a snow globe?" Recalling a year they'd visited post-peak, blossoms fluttering in the air with each breeze. How easily metaphors come to children, how slowly for those we love. My mother and I pump and pump our legs, inhaling lungfuls of this day, the pale flesh of cherry petals backlit by sun. Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you. H.E. Fisher is next.
Hi, all. Thank you for this beautiful reading. I'm going to be reading a Merna. I was in nursery school when my brother, 13 years older, began lifting me against my will like an updraft, setting me down on top of the refrigerator, a punishment for any minor offense or none. No one interceded. My family would come into the kitchen to make a sandwich, use the phone, or go out the back door or down to the basement, leaving me on top of the amana. Amana means faith in Hebrew or nourishment. I'd sit quietly, stoic, studying the elevation, looking out the kitchen windows, an eyas calculating flight, nascent wings striking air, urging. I had loved my brother, but love became a cold part of me, late August wind. After a time, he would re-enter the kitchen and hold out his arms for me to leap into. "I'll catch you," he'd promise. My brother had just learned to run when my mother allowed him to careen through our small grocery store aisles, knocking cans from shelves. Years later, my aunt shared this as an origin story during family therapy. My brother wasn't there. My mother held her words back, a silence I'd never heard. The rest of us, much like the grocer, expected her to clean up the mess. Over time, my hunger for the ground grew strong, shrinking the distance between my body and the floor. I dove off the amana's edge, a skyless stoop, a strike. My feathers covered the kitchen tiles like sawdust or hay.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on to the next group of readers. And the first reader in that group is Heidi Seaborn. Hi, Heidi.
Hey, Cindy. Wow, thank you. Thank you for this reading and for this extraordinary issue. Delighted to be here. Bones. We are planning a trip to Paris, then Bone, pronounced Bone, my mother and I. I never hesitate when to use I or me, as my mother always corrected. Although one of my sisters says her and I, my daughter sometimes says her and I too, and I realize that the second helping of child is the uncorrected draft. Sometimes I fall in love with the first draft. Sometimes I revise a poem into ruins. Occasionally, my daughter sends me her work memos for an edit. I press through the arcane technology language, looking for my child, as if she's gone missing amongst the clothing racks in a department store. When I find her, we stand in front of the mirror. Neither of us recognize each other. I don't think I have ever been angry at my mother, but my daughter was angry at me for years, maybe a decade or more. Her father, who has anger management issues, claimed that anger feels good because it morphs into righteousness. My mother tells me that he was the only person that made her truly angry. She never liked him. I never knew. When I dig in the garden of our very old house, I often find remnants from the children who once lived here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Next reader is Jean Monahan.
All right. It's an honor to be in this issue and to be hearing all of you today. I'm going to read the poem that was in the issue. It's Her Last Kitchen. Start with the perishables. Peaches sunsetting on a white plate, spotted bananas in a wooden bowl. Do you know the formal name for a bunch of bananas? A hand, a single fruit, a finger. Some hungers require an amputation. At root, bread means fragment. You are fed, yes, but the whole is broken. When we were all still very young, our father called her Mother Hen. She called us her chickadees, her brood. The years of care and feeding, the raising done, the whole broken into 7 pieces. Give us this day, this dismantling. I toss and clean, leaving the cups and plates, forks and spoons. But then here is something I can use. Her little spice shelves, cream of tartar, nutmeg, ginger, and rosemary. Pure ground black pepper in a tin. Coarse grain sea salt, ready for grinding. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the themes that emerged in this issue was food related and kitchen related. So we thought that was interesting. The next reader is Jeanne-Marie Fleming.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm wearing the glasses. I had eye surgery Thursday, and I've been dealing with some complications, and my eye is just like it's in pain. So anyway, kitchen theme. Yes, this story is about my mom. It's called Shrouded in Mystery, and I'm going to start in the second half. She goes into a trance in the middle of dinner, and we had 6 kids in the family. We're all sitting around and looking at her. Her existential trance may have lasted only 60 seconds, maybe a few minutes. I couldn't say, but I won't forget the panic that surged from my stomach to my throat as I waved my hand in front of her vacant face. Here's the thing. It was the mid-70s, and although our mother was far from being a hippie, I can only assume that somehow the practice of meditation, stillness, and freeing the mind must have seeped into her consciousness. Why did she choose the middle of dinner that night to try it? I scanned the room while Mom's eyes were glazed over, and suddenly the familiar felt very unfamiliar. It was as if I were observing the cacophony and chaos in that kitchen from an outside window. Pots on the stove had spoons sticking out of them. Baby bottles and rubber nipples were lined up next to the sink. On the counter, between a pile of bills and an empty box of powdered milk, Eddie's black shoes waited for a polish. Next to a yellow bib on the floor, a Tonka dump truck held a single sneaker. And behind the high chair, a thin pattern pinned to purple material, the making of a dress, was strewn over the sewing machine. This night was the first time I sensed an inkling of our mother's vulnerability, the first time I considered the possibility of her needing something beyond us. A woman in motion, cleaning, cooking, shopping, talking on the phone, the last to sit at the table, the first to get up, dish towel over one shoulder and a baby over the other. She kept our home neat, our clothes clean, and we always had either bologna, peanut butter and jelly, or a cold fried egg sandwich in our lunch bag. Our young mother, just 33 with 6 children, was the nucleus around which every other function of this family revolved. To this day, I've always wondered, where had she gone that night? In her trance, was she dreaming of a different sort of life, a life of peace and quiet? a life away from all of us. What I know for sure is that she checked out for a bit. And in that moment, that terrifying moment, I came to understand a part of her being was sealed away from us children, existing in a realm separate from the role of sacrificial wife and mother. Shrouded in mystery, my mother remains a woman I cannot fully know. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you heal quickly.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Jen Karetnick. Jen.
Thank you so much. Thank you to MER and all you who are working so hard, not just on this issue, but the next issue. Congratulations on 25. That's amazing. I'd like to read this poem in honor of Alzheimer's Awareness Month, which is now. Those who are suffering from dementia and also for those who are the caretakers. It's a really difficult job. A surveillance of foxes. Red female, multicolored male, every movement tailed by us, groom each other in my parents' steep backyard. Hawks dip down to see if they can talon a kit and coast away while the adults are otherwise occupied, and come up short, disappointed as an unbudded spring, then glide in again. Spooked, the female darts back to her den as if she must choose between her mate and babies, as if being pampered and parenting are as impossible to reconcile in her world as they are in ours. We can't belie any kind of sacrifice, no matter where it occurs. The routine of caretaking so ingrained that it's a muscled propulsion of bodily urge. The male stays stalwart guardian of the ridge, as my own mother bobs and paces, asks, "What do you need?" winds up this question to her middle-aged child with the same question, always these days, the same exact question. Thank you.
Thank you, that ending. And next we have Jennifer Franklin. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Marjorie. And thank you to Jen who took this poem for this issue. It's been so wonderful to hear everyone read today. This is a poem from my new collection that's coming out in January called A Fire in Her Brain, Epistolary Poems to Virginia Woolf, Sylvia Plath, and Lucia Joyce. And this one is from the issue called Beginning and Ending with the Same Line by Virginia Woolf. I am someone who thinks and feels much more than is reasonable, and that is all. And that has determined everything that has happened. I was never a child. I was born bruised and broken, about to learn all the ways a body betrays you. Rushed into the OR at 3 weeks, recuperating in the corner of the crib, curled into a coil, cold. Seeing me sickly so soon, my mother never wanted me to leave her care. Who could blame her? Only a girl herself then, with nothing else to occupy her mind but me. Her brother curated my education, taught me about the crucifixion, colonialism, the camps, cruel and calculated ways man can harm without covering the countless crimes that could happen in the confines of one's own clan. How could my kind mother know that her claustrophobic care would cut my confidence and would drive me directly to that doctor determined to destroy me? That was all long ago and would have faded into forgetfulness had I not given birth to his disabled child who will never care for herself. Now I am stuck. I am someone who thinks and feels more than is reasonable, and that is all.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was beautiful. Next we have Judy Ireland.
Thank you. Thank you to MER for taking my poem, and thank you to everyone for being here. The title of my poem is Pleurisy. They came from all the nearby houses carrying bed sheets until our living room was full of women. One wore white nursing shoes. One wore a dirty apron. One put her hands over her ears when my mother inhaled and cried out. Pleurisy for sure, one hissed. They stood mother up like a paper doll in the middle of the room. One woman held the end of a sheet against mother's rib cage on one side, while another walked in a circle, pulling it tight. When the first sheet ran out, another woman came with another and another. Women with strong hands wordlessly walking and winding, the only sound my mother's short gasps. They wound past the TV with its rabbit ears, past the open lid of the record player. They circled in front of the picture window in their silent dance. When mother was fully wrapped, the women laid her back on the divan, told her not to get up unless she just had to. The women looked into my eyes and my sister's eyes individually with a small nod as each one left. We knew to be very, very quiet. We knew better than to move an inch. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. It was a powerful scene. Lynn Pedersen is our next reader.
Thanks so much. Enjoying hearing all these voices from this issue. I'm reading a poem titled "The Whole Point of Going in the First Place is So You Can Leave and Return." And this world in flux becomes a map, a rendering of pinpoints, timestamps, historic buildings, and roadside signs documenting your presence. Welcome to Grand Teton National Park. And markers can be simple: a schoolyard sculpture, slab of concrete punched through with holes and nicknamed the Cheese, and the neighbor's house with the porthole window, and Lake Barkley Lodge, my first day at a motel, woodsy, full of spiders, August 8th, 1974, Nixon's resignation. Though I didn't know at age 7 the man on TV was the president, just noticed my mother was sad and asked why. And the Luau, a Memphis restaurant riding the wave of enthusiasm for the 50th state and Elvis movies, pineapple drinks garnished with paper umbrellas. And here's a photo of me there at 13 with a Dorothy Hamill haircut. The last time we'd have a big family celebration, my grandparents' 50th. The buffet so unlike their usual chicken fried steak and roast beef. And it's best if you can navigate back with successive generations. And if your personal landmark closes, sells, burns down, you may be left driving back and forth on a road saying, "It was here somewhere," or perhaps you were scouring faded parking spaces for a dirt outline of where a foundation used to be. And even when I don't want to make the effort, I suspect one day I will need these markers like handholds on a cliff. And so I pilgrimage to new place after place: Faneuil Hall, Seattle Public Library, Graceland, Salisbury Cathedral, and Devil's Tower. And still, I keep returning to the Luau, demolished in the last decade by a company with the motto, "Wrecking dreams one at a time." And the last time I drove by to orient myself, there was an empty lot, which just goes to show that it's wise to seek out object permanence, a mountain peak or a suspension bridge. And still, I was here, I tell my kids. In 1979, we were all here.
Oh, love that poem. Thank you, Lynn. Martha Pitts is next.
Great, thank you. I'll be reading an excerpt from an essay that was published in the special issue of MER, entitled "The Clock and the Question Mark." At 5 weeks and 3 days pregnant, I'm already waiting for it to end. This is my third pregnancy in less than 2 years, and my body has made its position clear twice before. 6 weeks seems to be my limit, close enough to hope, not quite long enough to plan. I've learned not to tell anyone yet, not to start imagining nurseries or calculating due dates. At my age, with my perimenopausal body, early pregnancy looks exactly like any other Tuesday. Instead, I wait and watch for the familiar signs that my body is preparing to let go. It started with a confession on a Sunday morning. I would have wanted you to be the mother of my children, my partner said, gazing at me as we lay in bed. He wasn't asking for anything, just naming something he'd been carrying. His thick black hair was tousled against the pillow, his skin warm and golden in the morning light. Even after 3.5 years together, his beauty still caught me off guard. At 45, with a college sophomore and a high school senior, I thought I knew the shape of my family. I'd done the heavy lifting of early motherhood twice as a divorced mother, learned to be the one who remembered everything. My teenagers were becoming themselves, needing me less each day. I could see the horizon, a life where my time might finally belong to me again. But here is my partner, 15 years younger than me, quietly mourning children we'd never have. The mathematics felt suddenly complicated. His youth against my weariness, his gentle longing against my hard-earned freedom. I watched him differently after that. The way he cared for his rescue dog, understanding her restlessness after being separated from her litter. How his eyes lingered on young families at the park. The tenderness he showed when friends and cousins talked about their toddlers. Love was supposed to make things clearer, wasn't it? Instead, it was asking me to reconsider everything I thought I'd settled. So we decided to try, not because I suddenly wanted another child, but because love asked me to consider it. And I wasn't ready to say no to this man who understood gentleness in ways I'd never experienced. The first pregnancy lasted 6 weeks. I remember the cramping, the blood, the strange relief that followed. We tried again. 6 weeks, same outcome. What surprised me wasn't the loss. It was that I wasn't devastated. The grief felt different than I expected, more like recognition than heartbreak. My body seemed to be making its own decision about what it could handle at this stage of life. Each miscarriage taught me something about the difference between wanting to want something and actually wanting it. Was I trying for him, for me, or for some idea of what love should look like? The losses clarified nothing, except that my body had its own wisdom, its own timeline that didn't match my heart's confusion.
Thank you so much, Martha. That was really wonderful. Our next reader is Megan Peak.
Hi, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from this issue called, and it's from my essay, Big Bang Baby. The first time I saw my son, he looked otherworldly. His body was tiny and translucent, 2 prongs in his nose pushing air to his underdeveloped lungs. During those first few days, the only way I could touch him was through 2 holes carved in the isolette. He squirmed and mewed. His feet shuddered at a needle prick. The CPAP machine bubbled incessantly beside him. Everything reminded me of my body's betrayal. The heart monitor's cyclical plunge and rise, the nocturnal wheeze of the breast pump. We had broken the natural order, my son and I, and now we sat suspended in it, teetering on the edge of what we were becoming. Fragment and form, grief and resilience, mother and child. They say it took hundreds of thousands of years for the first atoms to form, for chaos to give way to order. Then came the stars, the galaxies, strings of planets. After months in the NICU, I understood that pace, the slow assembly of a life. We waited for his lungs to strengthen. We waited for his heart to steady. We waited for a latch, and then for the rhythm, suck, swallow, breathe. My son wasn't so much growing as coalescing, gathering the pieces of himself across space and time. And as I watched him, grief yielded to something else. Not joy exactly, we were still in the NICU, but gratitude, quiet and slow. I realized I had forgotten how to wait, how to notice, how to marvel at becoming. I wanted him home, yes, off oxygen, off the pulse ox, but I was learning that parenting, at its core, amounted to a lifetime of waiting, of patience and presence. It became our role, our new devotion, to wait. For their crawling, walking, talking. We waited for them to go. We waited for them to come home. And maybe the miracle isn't in how quickly or cleanly they move through each stage, but in how fully they become, how we're allowed a chance to witness their messy, miraculous unfolding over time. In my head, the Big Bang was loud, like little boy tearing through the house as a rocket, telling knock-knock jokes without a punchline, singing off-key kind of loud. My little boy. He streaks when he's excited, when he's mad, when he wants to be heard. What a joy it is to be loud. Sometimes I just sit still and listen, wait for him to call my name. This, I think, is the sound the universe must have made once it found its form. Thank you.
Before I introduce my last person, I just have to say that everything that I've heard today reminds me of what's so special about Mom Egg, because it's such an intimate space, and I just feel really honored to be able to hear these stories and these poems. Michelle Parrish.
Good afternoon. Thank you, MER, for this brave, vulnerable space. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to read the first section of my essay that is in the publication, Raised by Wolves, an essay in 3 parts. The first part is titled The Den. They say the mother wolf is both sentinel and sanctuary. She teaches her young to run long before they're ready, not out of cruelty, but because the forest has no patience for innocence. Her den is not just a home. It is a classroom, a fortress, a womb of knowing. She licks wounds, disciplines with precision, and when the time comes, nudges her cubs into the world with a growl that says, survive. I've been thinking lately that I am her, not in fur or fang, but in the way I scan the world, always alert, the way I pull my children close as the world outside screams loudly, the way I ready them, not just for school, but for a country that is shifting beneath their feet like melting ice. To mother as a Black woman in this moment is to mother with one eye fixed on the door. It is to give warmth while building armor. It is to teach joy when the world tries to flatten their laughter. It is to soften their hearts without dulling their instincts. There is no luxury of delay, no safe den untouched by the outside. We teach our children not just to be kind, but to be vigilant and to excel and to endure. And still, we teach them to dance, play, and weep without shame. We are not just raising children. We are raising warriors in lullaby. And in this wild terrain, Black motherhood has become an act of resistance, radical love, and sacred preparation. Like the mother wolf, we do not get to rest, but we do get to howl. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm sorry I forgot Merna. Merna, Dyer, Skinner.
It's okay. I just want to express my honor and my privilege in not only joining this great group of poets reading, but being part of this issue. I was proud to be accepted and even more proud to read with you all today. When asked what I hunger for right now, I reply, I yearn for my green years, cut off jean years, bare feet dashing down splintered dock summers, long legs leaping into gleaming water, landing on lake's bottom, algae squishing between toes, minnows encircling peach-fuzzed thighs. I pine for my parents' old grocery store, those after-school plunges into glass-topped freezer cases, shoving aside Eskimo pies, lemon sherbet push-ups, searching for my favorite banana-flavored popsicles. I long to lick those icy yellow confections, catch drips before they slip down my wrist, enticing bees to hover or sting. But always chores before sweets. This day left for me to unbox banana bunches packed tight into crates, fresh from Costa Rica. I pry open the lid, begin singing the name games, silly syllables, starting with my sister Shirley's name, followed by these guys, bananas. As I reach in, trying to twist free the top bunch, tropical leafy scents rise, then Deep, rustling, whirling fur encircles my fingertips. I slingshot backwards as 8 black, hairy legs climb into sight. Tarantula, large as my palm, drops to the floor. When I was a kid, my mom baked luscious banana cream pies, meringue whipped peaks, perfectly crisp miniature minarets, like those she'd later see in Morocco. When she's 60, buys me a Berber rug, wool dyed from walnuts, madder root, saffron yellow, warm as just ripe bananas, like the ones in her pies, or banana splits we'd share, sitting dockside, feet dangling, swishing water, daring minnows to nip our toes. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Myrna.
Merna.
I'm going to
And,
just tap in, Cindy, for a
oh,
second.
sure. Yeah.
Before our last group, which is coming up, just to let people know that, number one, we are open for submissions. Visit our website, merliterary.com, for information on that. And if you would like to get a copy of this issue, you can do that at our website as well. And now for our next group. Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah. This is our last group. I just want to echo what Carla said, is that it's just really special to be part of this community and to hear these poems and essays and excerpts from prose read. And it's just very moving to hear it in your voices. So thank you all.